I am the message for you. So, after being a medium, a professional, and for the better part of 12 or 15 years, the lines are pretty blurred when you get started, but um, on a day to day basis, on a regular basis, anywhere from 3 to 12, 15, 20 times a week, you help people through their losses. Sometimes it's somebody that passed a long time ago that comes through. Maybe it's something recent. Maybe it's something with regret. Maybe it's something with pride. Maybe it's something with acknowledgement. And you get into the routine of recognizing. I'll tell you what I'm laughing at in a second. It's awesome. Um, there's no mistakes, by the way. And you go through this and you become one with spirit. You change things. You pay attention to your diet, your sleep habits, your behaviors, the things that you have that are connected to human needs, and the things that you have to forego it so that then you can make sure that you're doing the right thing for everybody, and spirit included. And over the last few years, it probably started almost 10 years to the date, where I felt like I really needed to connect with my mother's family and understand the lineage. I'm named after my mother's father, T. Brannon, as specific as it could be. And I lost my mother this week. And I know none of this is making sense. It's not supposed to. I'm sleep deprived, dehydrated, and running on emotion, which all those things are important when you're a medium, and it's important to keep them in control. No one was shocked when my mother's demise began. No one was, you know, in amazement. It was a series of normal health things. That's all I'll say. Because my mother was a staunch advocate of HIPAA. We don't share those things. She wasn't anti-vaccination. She was anti-telling people you were vaccinated, which would create the lexicon as to why we shouldn't even have a vaccination. That was so Terry. But anyways, having been through literally tens of thousands of readings and having my connection with her only get better, I wanted to just share some thoughts and ideas. And maybe what I need from you right now is just to hear me say whatever it is I'm supposed to say. And I am not the usual planned out, I guess you could say. I'm never planned. I'm just disrupted. But the first things first, and that is my mother was very complicated, as everybody is. And by the way, these are things that I would see on the regular. But I started to apply what I knew and beginning to understand that my mother lost her father at 5 years old. Not only left a hole, but it left anger, it left dismay, it left confusion. And it put her in fight or flight mode for much of her life. It's it's just what happened. And if it wasn't for her friends in college, she wouldn't have gotten a foundation. If it wasn't for my dad, who they were together for 54 years, and I know it was 54 years because I do the math every time. And if it wasn't for my dad sticking it out with her, she wouldn't have ever known stability in her life. And my mother wasn't one for conflict. She would just rub you the wrong way because she thought that's how she would be remembered. Like, because that's how she remembered her father. It rubbed her the wrong way. He left her, 5 years old. And she fought this demon that none of us could ever identify. None of us really knew. And of course, I have a special set of circumstances because I'm named after the person that left her. But my grandmother, again, used the tools that she had as a single mother with a certain amount of resources, and they were a business owner. And she was a bit of a socialite and was well to do and kind of knew that the world would kind of take care of her in whatever way possible. But as you pulled back the veneers, you would see that it wasn't, you know. their ostentatious Loudonville lifestyle wasn't going to be, wasn't everything it was cracked up to be. But that doesn't mean that my grandmother didn't love her. It's just she was like, yeah, I had these kids because of my grandfather, but he wasn't around to really love it the way he thought he was going to love it. And maybe his sense of urgency was knowing that maybe something would happen. And by the way, my grandfather passed by a tragic um, medication mix up. Again, HIPAA, but none of those things would happen today. There's too many laws in place, too many things that um, would help that not be an issue. I'm telling you all of these things to recognize that my mother just had tumultuous relationships. And when we would all compare notes, it wasn't one thing, it was a series of things, and it was a series of conversations. And over time, she just waned a little bit. And it wasn't so much the fight, but the technique didn't change. She wasn't angry as much as she was just lost. Her anger was really a cry for help over time. And for a really long time, I was worried about not having the pony, not getting the pony, not getting the thing. I remember being the musician, being the person that wanted the music all the time. I was adamant. I said, I want these CDs. If I don't get these tapes, they weren't even CDs, they were tapes. If I don't get these, then you're not a good parent. And I said, I was such a dick. And I'm like, you need to do these things. I was judging them with what they had. Well, like I said, I pulled back the veneers and it wasn't, we never went without, but boy, did Peter and Paul were constantly getting robbed and re-robbed. And it wasn't until I began to notice that where I really realized at first what a job my dad did to manage it all. And my mom still thought she had an affluent father providing. She still thought that she always would have that money, and my dad did everything to present it in a way that was always going to be there. So this anger was a thing, and it was consistent with all of her relationships. Pick one, but I'm only going to talk about mine. And I was angry for a long time because why can't you just be the mom that I need? Because she couldn't be the daughter that she needed to be, because she had to grow up fast. She had to grow up, and I don't want you to think that she was, Mary Jo Kopechnik, what's her name on Facts of Life? Like she didn't grow up on the streets or anything. She went to an all-girls college. She didn't grow up on the streets. But what she did do is develop this thing that she had to work out, and she had a wicked sense of humor. She really was funny. My dad's brand speaks to me for a whole host of reasons because it's mostly dad jokes and welcome to the club. On the other side of it, it's my mom's sense of humor was almost kind of like an ironic cutting or a biting, kind of that mix between think of a British female comic in Don Rickles' body. Like it had a sort of irreverence to it. It was ill-timed, ill-approached, sometimes even embarrassing, but she didn't care. She was like, "Did you get the laugh?" And that was her style because she needed it. Because she'd never had anybody pull her aside and say, "That's not funny." And then by the time people started to tell her, that was not funny, she had baggage with them. She had different baggage with them because that's how she looked at people, as baggage. You know, my grandfather, to her mind, abandoned her. To her mind, my grandmother was all about herself. Well, my grandmother was grieving. My grandmother was in survival mode. And the beauty of all of this is through copious amounts of therapy, understanding, forgiveness, all that stuff that goes on in the side. You begin to realize that it was never intentional, but you can control it. And I didn't really realize this until I was comparing notes with some other people in her life. Boy, did she really improve the last 10 years. I mean, she made a concerted effort. But then again, we all did too. And I had a different relationship with her because even when she gave me the worst of her, the best of her got me ready for it. And I'll never forget when the first book came out. The funny you should say that. It's still on sale on Amazon, by the way. I read the opener, which was Newport 1969, which basically retells the story of how I came to be. And it kind of encapsulates the first 3 years of my parents together, having met in Newport, and how their excessive hand holding turned into a baby, how how I was born, how my mother, while she was pregnant, worked for the Edgar Cayce Institute. All these things of me trying to figure out who the fuck I am. And I remember reading it to her, and her and my dad were there, and you know, and at the end of reading it, my mom could have said any one number of things, and even though she had been trying, even though she'd really been working at it, like it was just that nerve that was already functional, just pops up, and she couldn't help it. Then it would come out as snarky, it would come out as angry, it would come out as jealous. That was the other thing. Jealousy was a big thing. So after reading this chapter to them, because it's about them, it's about their journey. In a way, it was, if you go back and you read it, it's kind of me saying thank you. And at the end of that, she could have said anything. She could have said, "I'm proud of you. I can't wait to read more. What a great start." Instead, she decided to dismiss it by saying, "Too bad none of that's true." She didn't mean it, but she wanted to dismiss it because she was hearing her story. And something about her story didn't sit with her, but yet we were dealing with it. And I remember having a conversation with her because I was no longer going to carry stuff around. This part right here, mostly regret from mom. Um, besides nacho cheese, though. Thank you for finding me funny. Good night. I remember saying to her afterwards, "I don't know what that is, but thank you for letting me off the hook." And she says, "Well, what do you mean? How did I let you off the hook?" I said, "I no longer give a shit about your opinion." And she said, "It's about goddamn time." She one-upped me in my calling her to task. So classic Terry. And things got better from there. I got better. By the way, things started to open up with my work too. I was just more open with spirit, more ready to go. So what I was laughing about earlier is there's three boys here fishing. They pretty much look like brothers. The dad's sitting up on the shelf over here. And there's this pond, and the boy caught a really big fish. And he brought it up to his dad. The dad took a picture. They're all talking like it's everybody's job, and they're like, "Oh, whatever." And the dad just took like 100 pictures of him holding up this fish. It was a big fish, too, probably 10 or 12 pounds. That's what made me smile. Is this pond right here? By the way, it's Colony Town Pond. That used to be the police department. We used to live right up behind here. Can you imagine growing up with long hair right behind the police station? Yeah, me. Actually, it was in between the police station and the Troop G in Loudonville across the street from Siena. But since you've read the book, you know a lot of this stuff already. And I have another story to tell you, but I wanted to tell you that this is His pond is important to us. This is where I would come at night, and this is where I learned how to meditate. That gazebo right there, for better or for worse, is where my sister got married, and I've had a dozen or so prom pictures. That alcove right over there, that's where me and Wendy Peppercorn played blanket bingo. Anyway, so the other, I just, her name wasn't Wendy Peppercorn. Um, but there's a lot of healing space down here. There's a lot of, this is where I came when my grandmother died. By the way, she passed on July 7th, 1990. Oh, crap. And my mother passed July 8th. My grandmother passed 7/7. She passed 7/8 because she's not going to be outdone. And by the way, the numerology of the day was 789. All the numbers are running. Her astrology was terrible. Um, she had absolute terrible markers. But this is where I came down to when I found out that my nana had passed, and she had been really sick for a long time. Like, it was a blessing. And I came down here and I sat here and they couldn't find me. I mean, I was whatever age I was, 17, 16, 17. And I remember sitting here and just feeling like she was around me. And she was the one that said to me, "Get back there. You gotta go back. They're looking for you." And the way my nana would always bribe us, I think she figured out I was a foodie early on, because she would get these pinwheels cookies. Have you ever had pinwheel cookies? They're marshmallow, chocolate, and little pinwheels. I don't have to explain everything to you, do I? Look it up. So she came to me and basically said, "There's pinwheels in the drawer." And I got up and I walked up and they're like, "Oh my gosh, where are you? We thought you ran away. Are you suffering? Are you in bereavement?" And I said, "No, I was talking to Nana." And I walked over to the cookie drawer because we had a cookie drawer. Nana had a cookie drawer. It was her house. I opened it up and there it was. My mom was like, "Yeah, something told me to get pinwheels." So about 4 years ago, it was during the pandemic, my mom says, "We don't spend enough time together." And this is during the time where I'm really trying to work on this and be like, I don't know how much time I have them. I'm a medium, and I have a shitty relationship with my mom. It wasn't shitty, but it was estranged. It was strained. It wasn't estranged. It was strained because I would always answer the phone and I would always call her back and would always show up. I have saved every voicemail from her. So we go to lunch. We would have gone to Hoffman's, but it's been closed for 20 years. Some of you find that funny. We went to a place that I actually do a lot of weddings at. It's a beautiful place. It's got pretty good food. It's a cidery place. And we sit down. This is during COVID. She pulls down her mask. She pulls this paper out of her purse, puts it down on the table. She goes, "Here, this is for you." And I open it up, and it was all the instructions for when she passed away. And I'm laughing. I go, "Mom, that's so morbid. Mom, what are you doing?" And she goes, "Well, now you have to understand her day-to-day life. She would write liturgies. She would coordinate masses. She was working on the bereavement teams. She was writing these masses on the regular, so she knew which ones she liked." And the running joke in our family is no Amazing Grace because my her mother-in-law's name was Grace. How Yeah, how great thou art. And she hands it to me, and I open it up and I skimmed it. And I thought, I go, Mom, I go, let's just pray this doesn't happen today. Let's just let this happen for a while. And she laughs and she goes, well, she goes, I know not the hour nor the place, neither do you, because she couldn't just let it sit. She had to remind me that you're not that good. From that day on, I would say, I know not the hour nor the place. Well, I told you that story to tell you this one. This last week, and her her health deteriorated. She had an infection that was the start of it all, and pneumonias, and everything just piles up at the end. But she had a day where she was, it was awful, and then she bounced back, and we were just like, we knew what we were looking at, but bouncing back at least gave my dad some closure, gave us closure. But we knew what we were looking at. I lost the paper that my mom gave me. Can't find it. And while we were at lunch, this is the thing that sticks in my head. And I said, why are you choosing me to do this? And she says, because you're the one I can talk to after I'm gone. She's such an asshole. So I already had to ask her for help, and I got it right. Plan's all set. Everybody's involved the way they're supposed to. No amazing grace, whatever. And just like Nana told me 35 years ago, I'll be waiting for her. And just like my grandfather said to me, the one that died when she was 5, the shit you can do as a medium is awesome. He came to me about a week and a half ago, and he says, I have to come get her. She can't be hurt. I have to come get her. That's all he said. I don't know what my grandfather sounds like specifically, but he said, I have to come get her. And that's why I had a really kick ass eulogy. And then I go to the church today, and I have been we get bereavement so wrong in this world. 3 days, come on. 3 days is shit. But not as much of an insult as it is when I sit down and with the church coordinator, which, by the way, my mother predicted everything that has happened so far. I give her credit. And they said, will you have a eulogy? And I smiled, and the person that's known me for most of my life started laughing and said, you're going to do the eulogy, aren't you? And I said, I sure am. And she goes, 3 minutes. That's it. That's all you get, 3 minutes. Like, what are you gonna hit the gong on the gong show? What are you gonna play the music like the Oscars? Cue the music and the Emmys. But maybe my mother's loss is actually a form of healing in a way I didn't see coming. When I was growing up, I was an altar boy, and I was the altar boy. Every single day I was there, I was up on the altar. I was a lector, I was a Eucharistic minister, I was teaching confirmation. I was active, and I had long, flowing, kick ass hair down to my ass. just like Jesus. And if you've read the book, you know the story about how I was ceremoniously dismissed because I wanted to learn more about, I wanted to be sure about Catholicism, so I challenged it by wanting to learn everything else. So I started to pull together a curriculum that talked about Buddhism and talked about the different Christianities and what the belief system is, what the hierarchy was, and what Islam actually stood for. This is before Islamophobia. What Buddhism represented, what Taoism was, and I was doing just rolling up my sleeves and just presenting it to these 15, 16-year olds that were about to go through their confirmation. And I was literally challenging them by saying, are you sure? Because once you make this commitment, it's a commitment. I made the commitment. I was an example. Make this commitment. Be sure. Research it. Look into it. And even still, it's not the long withstanding research you really need to do in leading a Buddhist lifestyle or understanding how to incorporate Judaic values into your day-to-day life, understanding Kabbalism, understanding mysticism, understanding Gnosticism. I mean, it's a lifetime. It's a minute to learn and a lifetime to master. And I got a fateful phone call from the then bishop who basically says, I never, ever want you to teach again in any of my dioceses, in any of my parishes. Which was a departure because back then they just moved priests from place to place. I'm sorry, was that snarky? That was in honor of Terry. And I remember saying to her, I'm sorry I disappointed you. And I remember her saying, are you kidding me? You just told them they were wrong and stood your ground. Now, I'm going to miss you in church. I mean, she wasn't going to change her points of view. Trust me. But that's the way we raise you, to just have reckless abandon for who you are and be true to yourself and figure it out. And if you think it's a mistake, go do a mea culpa. She didn't say those words, but go tell them you're sorry and see if you can come back in. And I said, no, I think I'm meant to go on this different road. She said, I do too. I was 19, just about to turn 20. So anyways, I want to give you guys a heart taps. Thank you so much for those of you that reached out, and thank you for the well wishes. I can't read them all right now, but I will, and I do thank you. Yeah, totally. Are you kidding me? 3 minutes for me? Um, yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate all of you. Boy, oh, that's a post and a half. Thank you so much. Um, I appreciate you guys, and again, thank you. I'm looking forward to getting my schedule back on track. Um, Extra optimistic is a really cool thing because that's what I am. I'm extra optimistic. I give you guys a heart taps. Thanks so much for hearing me. So when you watch this video to the end, give it a like so that then the algorithms can get back online. But more importantly, let me know that you listen to it because that's how you actually help somebody in grief and bereavement. Just listen. There's so many more stories to tell, but this is perfect timing. Heart taps, guys. Thank you. And oh my god, I haven't done a video in forever. What is this telling me to do? Brandon, your phone will self-destruct. All right, guys. Keep going.